Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to Bites of Italy, the podcast where we explore Italy one bite at a time.
We are Natalie and Scotty, and if you've been following along, you know we're in Turin. In our last two episodes, we shared some of our favorite restaurants in the city and then explored piattini, what we like to call Piedmontese tapas.
Exactly, but today we're moving on to another hyper-local specialty that most tourists completely miss.
We are talking about a unique Turin-style pizza called pizza al Padellino, which you might also hear referred to as pizza al tegamino. If you thought you already knew Italian pizza, stick with us, because this one is a surprise.
Picture this scenario for a second. You've finally booked a trip to Italy. You're sitting at a little table. You order a pizza, and your brain is already anticipating the sensory experience. You are fully expecting a wood-fired oven and that classic floppy Neapolitan slice.
And maybe also the guy spinning the dough in the air?
Sure, why not? But then the waiter sets a plate down in front of you, and it is different. It's thick. It's incredibly soft and airy in the middle, but ridiculously crispy on the bottom. And it's been baked inside a tiny single-serving metal pan.
It completely contradicts how authentic Italian pizza is supposed to look and feel, right?
Yeah, it might completely change how you think about pizza in Italy. And today we're going to take you on a tour of our 3 absolute favorite spots in the city. We'll start with a historic, almost gritty 1930s joint, then move to places passionate about modern dough science. We'll give you the pro tips, the vibe, and the prices.
But before we visit the first restaurant, let's unpack the mechanics of this first. For example, when Americans hear the term pan pizza, they probably immediately picture a fast food personal pan pizza, or maybe a massive Chicago deep dish. Just this heavy, dense brick of cheese and dough. Is that basically what this is?
Not at all. So, classic Neapolitan pizza is baked directly on the stone floor of a super hot oven, like 450 degrees Celsius, which is almost 900 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, which flash bakes it? In 90 seconds?
Exactly. That creates the floppy center and the charred crust. But the Padellino is a completely different beast. The dough goes through a normal first fermentation, but then, and this is key, it's portioned and packed into iron pans.
How big are these?
20 to 25 centimeters in diameter.
So essentially, the size of a standard dinner plate.
Yeah, and then those pans are heavily oiled, and the dough is left in the pan to rise a second time before any toppings are even considered. So the pan becomes this little microclimate for the dough before it ever goes near the heat. When it finally does bake, the thermal transfer changes everything. The metal heats up, the oil gets hot, and the bottom of the pizza is essentially shallow fries.
Oh man, that sounds incredible.
It creates this massive Maillard reaction. Instead of a dry, hard shell, you get a thick, golden, super crispy bottom.
The bottom is frying, and the top, because of the sauce and cheese, is just sort of steaming itself.
You nailed it. You get this crazy contrast in texture, a caramelized, crispy edge, but a soft, cloud-like interior. It's about 40% smaller than a Neapolitan pie, but significantly thicker.
I'm getting hungry now. So let's move on to our first recommendation. We take you to the vibrant Borgo San Paolo district, a former working-class neighborhood. It's about a 15-minute tram or bus ride from the main Torino-Porta Nuova station.
Not too far at all.
No, and that's where Gino Pizzeria is located. This place is basically a time capsule.
Yeah, Gino is a place where time has stubbornly refused to move forward.
And once you get there, you'll most likely have to wait outside on the street until a table frees up because they don't take reservations.
Oh, guaranteed. It opened its doors in 1935, and it has been a neighborhood anchor ever since. The place is always crowded, even though they have virtually zero online footprint. Their Facebook page is a ghost town.
No reservations, no frills. The atmosphere at Gino is phenomenal. It's rustic with a very distinctive, uncompromising retro 90s decor. You walk into this single Spartan dining room, and the most crucial design element is the electric oven. The service is incredibly hasty but courteous. They waste zero time taking your order because there is literally a line of hungry locals staring daggers at you through the window, mentally willing you to chew faster.
That kind of pressure is just part of the charm. It's a working-class institution. It wasn't built for, lingering tourists.
Exactly. There is no English menu, and be prepared for potential language barriers as the staff may not speak English. It feels intimidating at first, but honestly, it's thrilling. You feel like you've stumbled into a beautiful local secret. Plus, ordering isn't difficult because the menu is very simple. Just pizza and farinata.
Okay, we have to pause here for a moment because you cannot talk about pizza Padellino without bringing up its ultimate sidekick, Farinata.
First, for those unfamiliar, farinata is this savory, thin pancake made from just chickpea flour, water, salt, and a very generous glug of olive oil. It is baked at scorching temperatures until the edges crisp up, but the inside stays almost custard-like.
It is an inherently Ligurian dish born on the coast of Genoa, right? So why are Farinata and pizza al Padellino inextricably linked?
This may have something to do with the origins of Turin pizza, which are hotly debated among culinary historians. There's a theory that links it to broader migration patterns. This theory suggests it originated with the migration of bakers from Tuscany and Liguria to Piedmont, and they already used round metal pans for things like focaccia and farinata.
I remember we talked about chickpea pancakes in the episode about pizza, only there they were called cecina.
Exactly. So, the theory goes that those coastal bakers brought both the pans and the chickpea flour to the city, and then simply repurposed their tools and dough techniques to bake pizza for the locals. The idea quickly caught on, as Turin was then the bustling industrial heart of Italy. Huge car factories were expanding rapidly, and thousands of factory workers needed cheap, high-calorie meals during their short lunch breaks.
And the idea of serving farinata and pizza is pure genius. It solves a huge functional problem. Pan-fried pizza is thick. It takes longer to bake than regular pizza. As a result, you have hungry and impatient customers sitting around. So, what do? They bring you a piping hot slice of chickpea pancake to eat while you wait. It's so brilliant. You just sit there eating farinata and the wait disappears completely.
At Gino, this tradition is of course maintained. They immediately bring out this wafer-thin farinata rich with toasted chickpea and olive oil notes. Perfectly golden, edge to edge. This is one of the best farinata in the whole city.
And then the pizza follows. They stick to the classics, double fermented dough baked in electric ovens. You have the holy trinity of marinara, margherita, and Napoli.
But they also offer some quirky old-school options that haven't changed in decades. Like the occhio or eye, which literally has a fried egg right in the middle of it.
Along with more unusual options like the onion pizza, which is fantastic, by the way.
We have to talk about the bill. I was shocked. It's such an honest price. The pizzas were like 6 to 8 euros. The farinata was $3.50.
And we washed it all down with a medium-sized carafe of the house wine for just 4.5 euros. We even finished with desserts like the Bounet and creme caramel, and it still felt incredibly cheap. The price point remains fiercely loyal to its working-class roots.
Gino is proof that Turin's culinary icons still live on in neighborhood restaurants where what comes out of the oven matters more than the trendy sign. But, pizza al Padellino desperately needed to evolve because, looking at the timeline, it went almost completely extinct. In the 1950s and 60s, tons of southern Italians moved north to Turin to work in factories, and they brought the Neapolitan pizza with them.
The invasion of the thin crust.
Exactly. It just dominated the scene. The humble pizza Padellino got pushed to the fringes. For decades, it was relegated to a nostalgic niche. Fortunately, however, in recent years, thanks to the rediscovery of local flavors, pizza Padellino has experienced a true renaissance. A new wave of young chefs is applying rigorous culinary science to their grandparents' street food.
Which brings us back towards the city center for our 2 spotlights showcasing this new wave. First up is a spot called simply Padellino and Farinata. I love that they just put it right on the sign.
This place is super central, just a 10-minute walk from the Egyptian Museum. It is in the crosshairs of a huge tourist traffic, and yet it is doing something incredibly innovative.
The vibe is completely different from Gino. It's a totally modern renaissance.
Yeah, the decor here is sleek, contemporary, featuring clean lines and a hint of Scandinavian design. The place is small, but they have a few tables outside. At the helm is an award-winning pizza chef named Andrea, who has already earned recognition in the prestigious 50 Top Pizza and Gambero Rosso rankings.
Right. And it all comes down to Andrea's dough science.
Let's get into science. What's he doing differently?
First, the flour. He uses a stone ground type 1 unrefined flour. So you get a much earthier, nuttier flavor. But the real magic is in the maturation process. Andrea lets the dough rest for hours, making his pizza incredibly light and easy to digest.
I definitely noticed it. The result is an impossibly light, airy crumb that still retains a lovely caramelized crust. It held the toppings, but it felt like eating a cloud.
And speaking of toppings, the menu here is wild. It features 19 different pizzas alongside seasonal blackboard specials.
Yeah, he does some really unusual stuff. My favorite was pizza sardinera. It had anchovies, olives, capers, tomatoes, and garlic.
I especially liked the campana, with anchovies, tomato, mozzarella, olives, escarole, and spicy oil.
And don't miss the stuffed Padellino, unique in Turin. They bake it, slice it in half horizontally, and stuff it like a sandwich, with the filling changing daily.
Andrea's creativity doesn't end with pizza. He really rocks farinata. Besides the classic yellow farinata, there's also a white one.
What is the deal with that?
It's a super rare specialty from Savona in Liguria. It's made with wheat flour instead of chickpeas. Finding it in the heart of Turin is like finding a culinary artifact.
So cool, and his farinata with gorgonzola cheese is simply mind-blowing. We suggest washing it all down with a local craft beer, of which there is quite a selection on the menu here.
Now for the listeners, I need to drop a massive pro tip. If you go to Padellino and Farinata on a weekday before 7:30 p.m., they have an aperitif deal that is simply unbelievable. You can get a portion of farinata and a spritz for €7, or a pizza and a spritz for €10.
We are talking about central Turin, mere steps from one of the most visited museums in Europe. You simply can't beat it.
Prices are generally fair here. I'd say they're quite good for a central location. Pizzas range from €5 to €10, classic farinata €3.50, and with additions €6.
Plus, you can book by phone, and there's a QR code for an English menu.
Not to mention the friendly and attentive service, with a young and very pleasant staff. And the owner, Andrea, is so passionate.
I couldn't agree more. Now, we go to the absolute extreme.
Yes, we're heading to a place that takes the pan pizza and turns it into an experiment. It's called Padellino Factory and is situated right behind Piazza Vittorio Veneto, one of the grandest squares in the city.
When you walk in, the aesthetic is just wow. Here it is spacious, atmospheric, featuring exposed brick, rough stone walls, and a moody color palette of browns and grays with sleek black accents.
Very stylish. It feels like a trendy laboratory.
It does. And their entire culinary philosophy centers around a deconstructed, build-your-own experimental journey. Here you can create your own pizza, which is radical for an artisan Italian pizzeria.
Right? When I hear build your own, my brain goes to like fast casual chains where you point at ingredients behind a glass sneeze guard. But here, every single modular component is a luxury tier.
Yeah, I realized that as soon as I saw the base options. At Padellino Factory, you don't just pick your toppings, you choose the actual dough chemistry.
There are 3 high-end bases to choose from. Bianca, a white base, a fluffy focaccia made with organic stone-ground flour. Rosa, a red base baked with a rich tomato puree on top. And Nera, an intensely black base created by incorporating vegetable charcoal directly to the dough.
You can only imagine the sheer visual drama of a pitch-black pizza crust arriving at the table.
Yes, it's stunning. But let's be honest, there's always a split second of anxiety when ordering food that seems charred over the bonfire. You pray it doesn't taste like campfire chewing, right? But vegetable charcoal is odorless and tasteless. It simply creates an incredible visual contrast with the toppings.
The topping options are staggering. You're choosing from a curated list that includes 12 different regional cheeses alone, alongside premium cured meats, fish, and seasonal vegetables.
For those who suffer from overwhelming decision fatigue, staring at a matrix of ingredients, you can enjoy one of the chef's 20 pizzas.
I had the chef's signature pizza called The Factory, topped with toma cheese, spicy salami, and olives. I paired it with an incredible farinata with stracchino cheese, maintaining that creamy interior and lovely crust. And I finished with a fantastic dessert, tiramisu. It was an incredibly decadent meal.
Now, the prices are higher here. Pizzas range from around €6.50 to €12, but the sheer quality justifies every cent. Plus, you can easily book online, which is great for tourists. But we like Padellino Factory not only for the charcoal crust, but also for its drinks menu.
Yes, they completely break the cardinal Italian rule of pizza pairing, right? Because in Italy, you're supposed to drink beer with pizza. It's practically a law.
But here they feature a rich list of wines, specifically focusing on the natural wines. The board lists the wines by the glass. There's also a large selection of wines by the bottle.
And let me tell you, sitting in that exposed brick room, eating a charcoal crust pan pizza, and sipping a glass of white Langhe Bianco or the red Barbera d'Alba, I felt incredibly sophisticated. In my opinion, a complex wine cuts through the rich fats of the oil pan and the premium cheeses way better than a standard beer ever could. It completely elevated the dish.
I agree. But you have to admit that in a country where food rules are practically enforced as law, choosing to pair a humble, pan-fried street food with the sophisticated natural wine is a bold declaration.
Definitely. For me, this signals that pizza al Padellino is no longer just a nostalgic snack. It has become a respected player in the modern culinary scene.
And on that note, we conclude today's tour. If you're mapping out your Turin itinerary, you really have a perfect 3-act story here.
We started at Gino to soak up that chaotic, dirt-cheap, deeply authentic vibe. Then we popped into Padellino and Farinata for award-winning pizza and an unbeatable post-museum spritz deal. Finally, we headed to Padellino Factory to sample the trendy charcoal pizza crust paired with excellent local natural wine.
Just choose the place whose vibe resonates with you, sit down, and start exploring. You won't regret it.
If this episode gave you ideas for your next trip, do us a quick favor. Hit like and drop a comment telling us which spot you'd try first. It really helps more food lovers find us.
Or share this episode with a friend who loves pizza. And don't forget to save it so you can come back to these recommendations when you're actually in Turin.
And be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss the next stop on our journey.
Speaking of the next destination, if you've been listening to our series on Turin, you might have noticed something interesting. There are strong influences from neighboring Liguria.
Which is exactly where we're heading next. In our next episode, we leave Turin and we travel to the capital of Liguria, Genoa. Think coastal flavors, iconic dishes, and a completely different culinary identity.
Grazie mille for listening, and we'll see you in Genoa. Ciao!